Imagine you're flying at an altitude of 11,000 meters. Outside the window, a black abyss. The temperature outside is minus 60 degrees. The speed is about 900 kilometers per hour. You're sitting in your seat, listening to the roar of the engines, and suddenly you notice a man in the 12th row. He stands up. He slowly walks toward the airplane door. He grabs the handle and starts pulling. Today, we're going to take a look at what would actually happen if an airplane door were to open during flight. But first, 3 quick questions. Try answering them right now. First, is it even physically possible to open an airplane door at high altitude? Second, if the door does open, will it throw the passengers out? And third, is there even the slightest chance of surviving in such a situation? Fun fact, most people get all 3 questions wrong, and now you'll understand why. Let's start with the most important thing. At cruising altitude, it's physically impossible to open an airplane door. It's not just difficult, it's impossible. It's all about pressure. Inside the plane, the air is specially pressurized so passengers can breathe normally. It feels like an altitude of about 2,000 meters. But outside, the pressure is 3 times lower. This difference creates a force that presses against the door with a load of about 3 to 6 tons. To put it more clearly, that's the weight of 3 cars simultaneously pressing against the door from the inside. No human being can overcome that kind of pressure. And that's not all. Airplane doors are specifically designed on the principle of a cork. First, they open inward, and only then can they open outward. The greater the pressure difference, the tighter the door presses against the fuselage. This creates a paradox. The more dangerous the situation, the more reliably the door stays closed. Physics literally protects the passengers. By the way, if you're interested in explanations like this, subscribe to the channel. Here we break down things that usually stay behind the scenes. And give it a like. It helps the algorithm show the video to people who are also interested in understanding how the world really works. And now for the most interesting part. In 2023, a video went viral across the internet. A passenger on an Asiana Airlines flight opened the emergency exit while the plane was still in the air. But there's an important detail. The plane was only at an altitude of about 700 meters as it was coming into land. At that altitude, the internal pressure is almost equal to the external pressure. That's why the door can actually be opened. Several passengers were injured by the strong airflow. Some lost consciousness. But no one fell out of the plane. And that already gives us a clue as to how physics actually works in such situations. But let's imagine the impossible. What if a depressurization occurs at an altitude of 11 kilometers? For example, damage to the fuselage, an explosion, or a serious technical malfunction. What happens next? Let's break it down second by second. The first second, there is no fiery explosion like in the movies, but the sound will be sharp, like a loud bang. The pressure drops almost instantly. A mist appears in the cabin. It's not smoke. It's ordinary moisture from the air condensing due to the sudden drop in pressure. The next few seconds, all unsecured objects begin moving toward the point of depressurization. Drinks, phones, pillows, papers. Airflow speeds can reach up to 300 kilometers per hour near the opening. People nearby can suffer barotrauma, injury from a sudden pressure change. 10 seconds later, the temperature begins to drop sharply, from a comfortable 20 degrees to minus 50. But the main danger isn't the cold. The main danger is the lack of oxygen. At an altitude of 11 kilometers, a person has about 15 to 20 seconds left to maintain the ability to think clearly. This is called the time of useful consciousness. After that, the brain begins to shut down. That is exactly why oxygen masks drop automatically. And that is exactly why it is important to put on the mask immediately, without delay. The most common question, will everyone be thrown out? The answer is no. The airflow is very strong near the opening, but it isn't the same throughout the cabin. A powerful airflow does indeed form near the damage, but just a few meters away it's significantly weaker. If a passenger is buckled in with a seatbelt, the likelihood of being thrown out drops sharply. And this is where it becomes clear why they remind you to buckle up on every flight. It's not a formality, it's a real factor in survival. Sometimes literally a matter of life and death. While the passengers are trying to figure out what's going on, a well-rehearsed procedure is already being carried out in the cockpit. No panic, no chaos. Every action has been rehearsed in advance. Dozens of times on simulators. The decompression warning appears on the instruments instantly. This is one of the most serious warning signals in aviation. The pilot's first action is to put on an oxygen mask. This takes literally a few seconds. The mask is connected to a separate pressurized oxygen supply system, so pilots can think clearly and make decisions even at extreme altitudes. At the same time, the co-pilot takes control of the aircraft. Next, a procedure called an emergency descent is performed. This is not a normal, smooth descent like during landing. The aircraft begins to lose altitude rapidly, yet remains fully controllable and stable. The goal is to reach an altitude as quickly as possible where passengers can breathe normal air without oxygen masks. This is usually around 3,000 meters. At this altitude, the pressure is already comfortable enough for breathing. The aircraft can descend at a rate of several thousand meters per minute. For passengers, this feels like a rather abrupt change in trajectory. But the aircraft's design is specifically engineered for this mode of operation. It is important to understand, the aircraft is not falling. It is descending in a controlled manner. Pilots use special procedures that allow them to restore safe conditions on board as quickly as possible. The oxygen supply in passenger masks is designed to last approximately 15 to 22 minutes. This is not a random number. Engineers calculated in advance how long it would take the plane to descend from cruising altitude to a safe level, even taking into account possible delays, weather conditions, and other factors. In other words, the system has a margin. That is exactly why passengers are always told, put the mask on yourself first and only then help others. Because without oxygen, a person can lose the ability to act appropriately in as little as 15 to 20 seconds. In an extreme situation, time is the most valuable resource, and every second truly counts. Now let's look at a real-life case that forever changed aviation safety standards. 1988. Aloha Airlines Flight 243, the Hawaiian Islands. The plane was flying at an altitude of about 7,300 meters when one of the most unusual incidents in aviation history occurred. Part of the fuselage literally tore apart. A section of the roof nearly 6 meters long vanished. Imagine this scene. Passengers sitting in their seats. And suddenly there is no ceiling above their heads. They see the sky. They feel a powerful rush of air. The noise becomes deafening. One of the flight attendants was in the aisle at the moment of the rupture. She was instantly thrown out. Her body was never found. It is a tragedy. But at the same time, this incident demonstrated the incredible strength of the aircraft's structure. Despite serious damage to the fuselage, the plane remained controllable. The pilots were able to make an emergency landing. Most of the passengers survived. After this incident, fuselage inspection procedures were significantly strengthened. Special attention began to be paid to metal fatigue, microcracks that develop over time. This incident saved countless lives in the future, because after it, standards became stricter worldwide. Sometimes a single disaster changes the safety of millions of subsequent flights. Another incident occurred relatively recently, in 2018. During the flight, part of the aircraft's engine broke apart. A fragment pierced the window at tremendous speed. This led to a partial loss of cabin pressure. A passenger sitting next to the window was partially sucked out. Other passengers immediately began to help. Several people held her with their hands while the pilots performed an emergency descent. The plane was able to land safely. Unfortunately, she was the only casualty. But the remaining 148 people on board survived. This incident demonstrated how important not only technology is, but also crew training. Pilots undergo training for such scenarios even before they begin flying with passengers. They train in simulators where dozens of different emergency situations are simulated. It is precisely this training that allows them to act quickly and accurately, even under extreme stress. And a very recent example occurred in 2024, Boeing 737 MAX 9. During the flight, a door panel blew off the plane. In fact, a hole the size of a small door formed in the fuselage. The pressure changed abruptly. Some passengers were injured. The airflow literally tore the clothes off one teenager. But no one fell out of the plane, and no one died. This incident once again sparked serious discussions in the aviation industry. Additional inspections of assembly quality began. But from a physics standpoint, exactly what was expected happened. The plane remained controllable. The pilots executed a descent. The passengers survived. The aircraft's design proved its effectiveness once again. Now let's take a closer look. Airplanes are designed with a huge margin of safety. Take the windows, for example. They consist not of a single layer of glass, but of several. There is a small opening between them. It regulates pressure distribution. If the outer layer is damaged, the inner layer remains airtight. This prevents a sudden loss of cabin pressure. The same principle is used in door design. A plug-type door, so-called. It opens inward first, and only then can it swing outward. The pressure difference literally presses it against the fuselage. The higher the pressure, the more securely it is held in place. The oxygen supply system is also well thought out. The masks are designed to last long enough to reach a safe altitude. Even the seat layout, the distance between rows, and the number of emergency exits are calculated in advance. There is an international requirement. The aircraft must be fully evacuated within 90 seconds. Moreover, half of the exits may be blocked. These tests are indeed conducted with volunteers. Engineers test real-life evacuation scenarios. All of this creates a multi-layered safety system. Each element complements the other. Now let's return to the questions from the beginning. Can an airplane door be opened at cruising altitude? No. The pressure difference creates a force of several tons. This is a physical limitation. Will it throw all the passengers out? No, not that either. The risk exists only in the event of damage. Passengers who are buckled in remain in their seats in most cases. Will the plane break apart instantly? No. The fuselage is designed to withstand such loads. Airplanes undergo extreme testing before certification. That is precisely why aviation is considered the safest mode of transportation. Not because nothing ever happens, but because every problem is thoroughly investigated and turned into a new safety rule. The next time you fly, pay attention to the safety instructions, even if you've seen them dozens of times. Behind every point are real events, real mistakes, and real lessons. Aviation doesn't ignore risks. It studies them and creates systems that work exactly when it's really necessary. If this video helped you better understand how flight safety actually works, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next episode.